So we got Vancouver this weekend. Like you said, I'm working. You are um playing
Mhm.
in the tournament. And I gotta say, after our intro here, where you're talking about how you can't fly, so you're having to last second like pick up and drive. I gotta say, I feel like if that had happened in October, you wouldn't have driven. You'd have been like, "I'm gonna stay home and restream it." So I appreciate the fact that like you've got I don't know what it is, but you're does you have enough desire to actually get out and play in the tournament for whatever reason.
Yeah, I just, like, already kinda committed to the idea of doing it. Yeah, I don't know, like, like, earlier in the season, what would've pushed me to well, I mean, like, I can drive to this one. I can't drive to many other regionals, to be honest. That's part of it.
I mean, saying you can, I mean, you could drive to Atlanta
Reasonably.
regionals as well.
Yeah, 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 but, like,
Some people
this
don't
one
really
is, like
consider 15 hours reasonable.
yeah, I mean, this one's, like, more within reason than most, so,
Sure.
yeah, I don't mind it too much. I've driven up to Vancouver before for one of the regionals, so it's not that bad.
It's been I was thinking about this recently. It's been a long time since I've had like a real solid like road trip. Uh but like I used to road trip all the time to regionals. Like
Yeah.
we
I mean,
would
yeah,
pack like 5 people in my tiny car and drive 12 hours to whatever East Coast regionals was happening.
thinking back on it, like, how many of the like, going from Massachusetts to Philly or even to Indianapolis multiple times, like, I mean, it was definitely a lot cheaper, though. You get, like, 5, 6 people in a vehicle, drive it even from, like, Massachusetts to Indianapolis. Definitely cheaper than buying flights, that's for sure. And it's a good time as well. It's a good time as well.
Some good memories made on those long trips for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking forward to Vancouver. Always kind of a fun city to visit as well, depending on how the weather is. Last time it just rained the entire weekend, so I don't know if
It's gonna be
that's
pretty cold.
it's gonna be cold, but is it
It's
gonna
gonna
be
be pretty
rainy? I
cold.
can handle the cold. Cold plus rain though, that's brutal.
Yeah. Also, we said we wouldn't forget this again, and I guess I did catch it halfway through the episode. There's also a regional happening in Brazil this weekend as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Fortaleza? I don't know how to quite pronounce it, but I tried my best.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you try, not me. Fortazella, maybe.
So I guess what one thing we can do is we can combine our predictions for these ones as well. We should be able to combine all of them actually, to be honest, except for one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 regionals coming up this weekend, Vancouver and Fortaleza. So a decent amount of action. I don't know if there'll be a stream for Fortaleza. I assume Copag is running it, so my guess is gonna be no stream, even like a community stream for the regional in Brazil. So we're just gonna have to wait for the results on that one. There's nothing to watch. I think Pokedata will probably have anyone who doesn't know about Pokedata, it's a site. Shout out to Julian. Um, Pokedata.ovh basically just scrapes all the data from RK9 and puts it in like easy to read format for the results of tournaments basically live as they are happening. So if you want to keep up with tournaments as they're happening, use pokedata.ovh. It's pretty simple, pretty easy site to use and navigate. Um, allows you to keep up with the action even when there's like no stream going on, or even
Yeah.
if there's a stream going on, you don't get all the information. You get more information on this site than you do through the stream. So
Yeah, let's talk about some of the decks and kind of some of the stories post EUIC. So let's start. I think a good place to start would be with the deck that won at EUIC, which is Terrapagos, with the cloth, with the Badoo, all of those things kind of baked into it. I mean, it was a pretty impressive run and especially a pretty impressive display from Ryuki in the finals about like what the deck can do.
yeah.
His top 4 game against Xander Perot as well. I think that's the game where if you watch that game, you would be like, dude, this deck is just broken. It like the way you can manipulate your damage and play around Pheasantipity, like this deck seems insane. Um, those things considered, I mean, Cloth, I think, kind of surprising, and we keep calling it Cloth.
Really is
Grant,
Badoo Terrapagos.
yeah, Grant is very quick to always correct me about this, and it's like he's like, dude, there is a Cloth in the deck, but it is not a Cloth deck
Yeah,
anymore. It
yeah,
is a
definitely.
Terrapagos deck. Um, is this was like a sneakily high percentage deck, right? Was the sixth most popular deck in day one of the tournament, which I don't think really anyone anticipated. Um,
Was it that high?
yeah, it was the sixth most
Oh, but it
popular
was
deck.
only 4% still, though. It was only we do have it was, like, kind of a top-heavy meta, I guess, overall with
Yeah,
Dragapult at 18.
did make the graph though, but yes,
Yeah.
4% day one. What is it going to look like in Vancouver now? The deck just won. Is it going to ride that wave, be more popular? Is it going to be as successful?
Um, Honestly, besides the win besides winning, there were still 2 or 3 others in top 16 as well, so it was pretty successful. I honestly don't think the deck was that good of a play for EUIC. I think it actually becomes probably a slightly better play moving forward because one of its auto wins, Golden Go, becomes more popular for sure. But honestly, I still don't think the deck is that good of a play moving forward. You have a tough time against Archaladon, and excuse me, Gardevoir. Those are like the big ones. And specifically, like if you're copying the Ryuki build, that build just like can't beat Archaladon. Doesn't even have Ursaluna in it, which is actually a card that we missed when we initially analyzed Ryuki's build. Um, there's no Ursaluna in Ryuki's build. The other builds that did place pretty well, just outside of top 8 and top 16, they were playing like a little bit more traditional of a list, I guess, than what we come to see. But of course, that's going to come up with more variables. It's going to come with more variables against those matchups um, that you're trying to like kind of hone in on, like the Dragapult matchup and stuff like that. So yeah, and even with like stuff like the Ursulina, I think you're still unfavored against stuff like Archaladon. So yeah, honestly, I don't think the deck is going to increase in popularity by that much. Maybe it'll get up to like 6%, but I could see it just being 4% again. um, yeah, I honestly just don't think it's that ridiculously strong of a play moving forward. I think it's like fine. I think, but there's a lot of other decks that are fine plays
I
going to
actually think
Vancouver.
it's like it's um I don't think its play rate will increase much, maybe slightly, but I do think it's like it's not any better or worse of a play really than it
I
was for
think,
EUIC,
yeah, I
I would
think it
say.
gets better. I think it was actually a worse play at EU. I don't think it was that good of a play at EUIC to be honest, but I think it does get better for sure moving forward to
Well, the two
Vancouver.
decks you mentioned that it has a hard time against, Gardevoir, Archaladon, neither of
Oh,
those
and
decks.
Lugia. I think it's also unfavored against Lugia, but that one's a
Yeah,
little bit closer.
and none of those decks did really well at a UIC. Obviously, Simone got top 4 with Archaladon, but that's like, I mean, you gotta go really far down to find the next Archaladon.
Yeah.
Archaladon overall, not a great tournament. Lugia fell off the face of the earth. Gardevoir really didn't perform super well. So if those results kind of scare the people who like those decks off of playing those decks, force them into something else, maybe it
Yeah.
actually gets to be a better play. And I think the biggest factor for Terapagos, why it was like it ended up performing really well at EUIC, is it is probably, maybe besides Dragapult, the best user of Badoo in the format. And arguably
I
it's
think it
better
is. Yeah, I think it is
because
the best user of Badoo. It's just
you
not as good as
can
Dragapult.
you can output more damage, right? You can KO things in between turns, not activating like the potential of the Badoo is just so strong. And also you get the added benefit of the potential to be able to donk people with Petrons, which no one really likes that much. So I think, like, I don't know that it's gonna be very popular, but I think this deck is going to be pretty successful at this tournament.
I will see. I guess I don't expect Gardevoir and Archaladon's popularity to fall off that hard. Um, Archaladon will definitely not be 12% at Vancouver, but even if it's still at like 9%, Gardevoir's still at 8%. Like that wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, and I think we'll probably see more success. Like Archaladon still got top 4, but I have to imagine. But then yeah, the next highest place one is like Shemansky at 70th place, I think, or something like that. I have to imagine one of those 3 decks is going to have a better tournament. Lugia is definitely the one that I feel like Cloth cares about the least out of the 3, but I imagine one of those 3 decks will have, like, a better run overall to kind of, maybe slow down the Cloth a little bit. Yeah,
Next
I
deck.
think it's still
Oh,
fine, for sure. But yeah, like you said, like, the popularity shouldn't be going too crazy.
is Dragapult still the undisputed most popular and best deck in the format?
Yeah, I don't think any deck will it'd be hard for a deck to dethrone it. I mean, how many majors do we have less in this term? We got 2 majors this weekend, Stockholm 2 weekends from now, and then Brisbane the weekend after. So 4 majors total left in this format. I don't think any deck will be more popular than Dragapult. I don't think it's possible because the deck is so good, and I don't see. Yeah, I think it's still the best deck in the format. I think it just solidly is the best deck in the format. Like I don't even think it's. It's not that it's not close. It's just like um, it's not like Broken Lugia. In terms of like how much better it is than everything else, it's not like Broken Lugia levels better than everything else, but like it definitely is just like solidly better than everything else. And I just don't see how anything else can get to its level. Like some deck would have to come out of nowhere that no one has been playing or thinking of, and like to dethrone it. I feel like because the matchup spread is just way too wide on it.
I think the interesting thing with Dragapult right now is the very many different ways to play it, right?
Yeah,
Um, we've got like the Natalie Miller and James Cox lists, which are both very similar to each other, just kind of traditional with the Dusknoir. There's some Charizards in the mix as well. Oscar Madsen had the ninth place finish at EUIC, just outside top eight with the clean cut. So that's still floating around there. And then we've got the Fernandez brothers build, which I think will pick up in popularity a little bit more.
I like this build the most
They've
personally.
got the Ursaluna, and the really interesting thing is the Monkey Dory with the Darkness Energy. I feel like if you expect to play some mirror matches and one of you has Monkey Dory Dark and the other one doesn't, the person with Monkey Dory Dark just has to like
Gotta have
absolutely
the advantage.
destroy the other person. Like it's got to be a very sizable advantage.
Yeah, and Tord played something pretty similar to this. Didn't have the Monkey Dory, had collapse over Sinnoh Lost City. Um, But kind of the same idea, had the Ursaluna, as well, so definitely had a Halucha in there as well for some damage spread. Um, so definitely an interesting build from Tord. Uh, and, what was I gonna say? Yeah, there's a lot of ways to play the deck right now. I think, like, I like the Fernandez build the most, I think. Um, but and I think I like Charizard the least, but I mean, Oscar is like the sole, I don't know, hype man behind the deck for a while. Like since the format began, Oscar's been like talking about how good this deck is, and with like. I assume other people play Dragapult Charizard at the tournament, but its play rate to its success rate is maybe the most successful Dragapult tournament at EUIC, for sure. I would say was probably Dragapult Charizard in terms of its play rate to placement, but so there's definitely something to look at here for sure. I just have not had time to ever try it out really, to be honest, but yeah,
I
there's a lot
think
of ways to play
this
Dragapult.
this version of the deck seems really good into everything but the mirror.
Yeah, I have to imagine that's where it probably struggles the most, as long as the opponent plays knowing that you have Charizard, like it, like, plays around the Charizard, but I feel like it's not that hard to do it, and you're gonna see it coming from kind of from a mile away. So I feel like you do have the disadvantage in the mirror, for sure. And then it's, like, tough to like argue to play a Dragapult build that is disadvantaged in the mirror, to be honest. Instead of trying to figure out the best one for the mirror, I feel like that should be something that you're prioritizing for sure. Because I feel like that's something every deck should be prioritizing is having something against Dragapult Charizard. Let me see that with the Golden Go lists, right? Playing the Monkey Dory themselves, and
Yeah.
that kind of being like the fix for that matchup. So
Speaking of the Golden Go, was that just a singular tournament fluke, or will it have staying power? Will Golden Go now be, a meta contender for the format?
I think it's actually gonna be pretty popular at Vancouver. Golden Go actually in last format was like 7% for a while
Yeah,
in the meta. I think people like Golden Go. That's pretty cool. That's pretty fun. I think people just need to be shown that it's good to want to play it. So I think Golden Go will be pretty popular. I could see Golden Go being the second most popular deck at Vancouver. Maybe that's a
that's
little
crazy.
wild, but when you think about what else would be the second most popular deck, Ardvor or Chaladon, I mean, we're sitting here. I'm not a huge fan of either of those decks right now. Personally, I'm a bigger fan of Golden Go, I think, than either of those. Um, yeah, I can see our child, or I can see Golden Go being the second most popular deck, probably like at 10%. Like maybe there's a ton of 10%ers in that range under Dragapult. I
I
could see
think
Golden
it's
Go being one of them.
pretty unlikely
It
that
does
that
seem unlikely.
happens.
I agree. I don't disagree.
I think it's more
What's
likely
going to
that
be there
Miraidon is the second most popular deck. Even
after
though even though it didn't do the best at EUIC,
and
I
Cloth
think
Terrapagos one? Yeah, I don't
yeah,
see
that is
Miraidon being.
fair.
I think Miraidon's gonna fall off a little bit. I do still like Miraidon, but I think it's gonna decrease in popularity going into Vancouver
Well,
from
I
the
just think a
UIC.
lot of people make their decisions this is something we fail to consider so often. Or like we consider it, but we don't weight it heavily enough, I think, and that is the fact that 80+% of the players have known what deck they're playing for 2 weeks.
That is something, but it was UIC was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
So, like, did people pick
but we thought that, dude, Miraidon was everywhere. One Merida, it was 2 weeks, and then Gardevoir was still the second most popular deck at EUIC.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it is true for sure. So, yeah, it'll be interesting how it kind of shakes up, and I feel like probably, American/Canadian players are probably locking in their deck choice or picking their deck choice probably more based on the Merida results initially before UIC even happened, which I guess I don't disagree with. But yeah, I don't know. I could see it. So I could see. I don't think Martin will be the most. If it wasn't the most popular at UIC though, I don't see it being the most popular here still
I mean, I
though.
don't think it's gonna be more popular than
Oh, not
Dragapult.
most popular. Sorry. Yeah, Dragon Balls
Yeah,
always the most popular.
yeah.
Second most popular is definitely up. It feels like it's up for grabs. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Gardevoir or Archaladon was the second most popular, just based on what we saw at UIC. But I don't think either of those decks seem very great right now. So, and I think people, Golden Go, it seems better than both of them, and I think Golden Go's got some hype behind it as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if Golden Go was the second most
Also,
popular.
98% of the people who are at this tournament are gonna be either from the United States or Canada,
Yeah,
like 95 maybe at,
it'll
something
probably be
like that.
98. Yeah, it'll be high.
343 Americans at EUIC, 60 Canadians. So if every single one of those people who went to UIC is also going to Vancouver, which is not the case, let's
All
say
right, let's start analyzing. We'll know 60 of the players are playing. Make some medicals here.
yeah, there you go, yeah.
So you pick out all
The
the
best
top level
players,
Americans.
yeah,
A lot of them were playing Golden Go. Dude, we could predict the meta here. This could be a free dub.
there
The
you go.
optimal call.
I mean it more to say that the
Oh, I know.
majority of the people who are playing in this tournament did not even go to EUIC,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So how, uh, heavily will those results weight their deck choice?
Yeah, I don't know. This is like there's definitely a lot more to analyze here and go in because I think like we can look at past. I think some tournaments are just weighted differently in the minds. I think ICs are probably in the competitive Pokemon TCG space weighted pretty heavily in terms of predicting what people will play. Maybe not the week after an IC, definitely 3 weeks after, but then maybe the 2 weeks is kind of the gray area because like we've seen it before in the past where the example I always go to is when Yuho won with Miraidon at LAIC, and then the next week in Europe, Miraidon was like 15% of the tournament or something ridiculous. It went from like 8% to 15, and that's obviously just based on Yuho winning, right? So there's 2 weeks. That's more time. I feel like there's more time for people to make the adjustments, try out the cloth deck maybe, definitely pick up Golden Go, stuff like that. Maybe put down stuff like Archaladon or Miraidon with maybe the hype of the cloth Terrapagos deck. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see in the end. But I feel like it is kind of tough to pick maybe that should have been one of our predictions. What will be the second most popular deck? Because right now I'm actually not too sure, but there's like a lot of candidates that I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those. And Golden Go, I think I could see it being Golden Go. It's been close a couple times.
So you put Stall super low on your tier list
Yeah.
for the last tournament. I think I put it kinda medium. I think it was like C tier or B tier, maybe even on my tier list heading into EUIC, and it ended up having a really good tournament. 2 players in top 8 with the deck, quite a few more in day 2 as well. Like, it had a really solid showing overall, especially considering its play rate, which is a big factor for those decks always. Do you think that it will be successful once again in Vancouver this weekend?
Probably not as successful as it was in the UIC, but I think it's definitely probably a better play in the current meta than gave it credit for. And I don't think there's a reason to assume it gets that much worse for it. Although I think it's maybe a little bit more on people's radar. So like some of the Cloth Terrapagos players might, I mean, with four switch card, maybe it's already good enough, but they might consider putting Petron EX in, stuff like that. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see text like that pop up. Um, I think I definitely did underrate the deck a little bit, but I don't think it's like I would say maybe it overperformed at UIC, but it's definitely better than I gave it credit for before UIC. So
Yeah.
one of them in top eight wouldn't be like a shock. So I think the deck is like okay still.
I definitely think it overperformed a little bit, and I think part of it is, like, um People in past formats have at least been kind of prepared for Snorlax. In general, most people just play pretty badly against Snorlax and stall and control decks in
Yeah,
general. That's like a big reason why those decks are always so successful is because good
definitely
players
has
choose to play them
inflated
and
win
people
rate.
play poorly against them. Um, so I think what I would say, PSA, anyone playing in Vancouver this weekend, play 2 games of your deck that you want to play against stall and just have a good game plan at
Yeah,
least.
have an idea.
um I do not think stall should have nearly as good of a time as it did, but it probably will still have a decent enough tournament because people don't prep properly against it and its results are inflated compared to
Yeah,
how
I've seen
good it
that.
actually is.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, so I think it performed a little bit over at a UIC, but it's not like something it's not crazy broken right now or anything like that.
All right,